Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Welcome to the bonus show. I got a good story here from Heather. Yeah, I guess it's a heartwarming, inspirational story about a 10-year-old girl who saved her grandfather from drowning. This is a story about Kara Jumper, who basically saw her grandfather fall into a pond. Now, what had happened was that, things happening with my computer, out of my control. Apparently, he had a stroke. So the man fell into the water. She just, instinct took over immediately, and she reacted, and she went and jumped into the water and managed to pull him out. This is a 230-pound man, and this is a 10-year-old girl who's pulling him out of the water. Then, after they got out of the water, she realized that his phone had fallen into the pond. The phone was on him. They had no way of calling 911. So he can barely walk, but she helps him get to the car, which is, I guess, about a quarter mile away. And then she gets in the car and drives multiple miles to the nearest hospital with him, I guess, in the back or the passenger seat, and to get him the help he needs. And it sounds, I don't know, it just sounds like a pretty incredible story to me. The reason she knew how to drive the car was because I guess either her grandfather or parents had in the past kind of given her some instruction on driving. And I know we've heard stories before, I'm sure you have, about kids taking over cars and things like that, right?
Yeah. And I don't think I'm actually more interested in the part where she was able to jump in and pull him out. And there are actually lots of stories like this in history where in certain situations where because of adrenaline, you're able to just exert incredible force. There's stories of people ripping sinks or toilets out just with their hands, ripping a sink out of the wall. Stories of people being able to lift cars, or at least fewer people than it should take to lift the car because someone is trapped underneath it or something like that. And, I know that some people would attribute these things to God or some kind of higher power, but we actually have some pretty interesting physiological explanations for how these things are able to happen. As far as the driving goes, by the time I was 10, I had definitely sat in my parents' cars enough where if I had to drive the car, assuming I could reach the pedals, I would have been able to. How well, who knows?
Right. Yeah, it is interesting. I have watched some shows about what we're able to do in those situations, and you basically can exert yourself and use enough force to actually tear your own muscles apart, the ones you're using, and accomplish physical feats that you normally would not even be able to come close to doing. But I guess the moral of the story is it doesn't hurt to teach your young kids how to drive a car, because that might have been what saved this guy's life in the end. But like you said, I guess by the time you're 10, you're in cars enough to understand what's going on and to see essentially how to do it. But pretty crazy stuff. Good for her and her grandfather. Her grandfather is very happy that she was there. I have a story here from Mary about the recent, how would I put it, unseasonable or unusual snowfall in some southern parts of the country. And we talk a lot about conspiracy theories, most of which sound completely crazy. But what we have here has to be just the most insane conspiracy theory I've ever heard in my life. And I guess some conservatives are trying to claim that some of that snowfall in these warm southern places was not real, that it was being engineered by the government and for some reason dropped in these southern states. I guess the government just wants to lose money by creating accidents, traffic jams, and things like that.
I don't fully understand usually the motive is one of the things that is always there. And I'm curious about the motive because you would think that if it's the current government, they want people to believe in climate change, which most people attribute to global warming. So it actually wouldn't even be in their interests to drop snow in warmer areas, because right away, every time that happens, the anti-climate change people start saying, see, everything's fine, it's cold. So I don't even understand what the explanation of the motive for this is.
I'm not sure either. I guess some people were taking lighters and making videos trying to melt the snow, but they said it doesn't melt. It lets off a toxic smell and produces black marks on the snow. And that this is proof that this is some engineered substance that the government has let loose. But other people are quick to say, well, no, it doesn't melt. It sublimates and it just turns into a gas, and that's why it's not melting. Anyway, this has to be one of the craziest things I've ever heard. And it seems that there's just really, I guess, any number of insane motives if you're crazy enough to think that not only do we have the technology to do this, but that...
And also that none of the airplanes that were in the airspace at any point saw anything unusual.
Right. Add that on top of it. But really just makes no sense. And I'm sure if you YouTube this, you can find these videos. I'm loading one right here. And I think this is one from one of the conspiracy theorists here. Let me see what happens. Yeah, he's holding the lighter to it. And I guess he's freaking out that it's not melting. It's got an ice cube. Who knows? This is just crazy. None of it makes any sense, but there it is. You can YouTube this. Thank you, Mary, for the story. There's no end to the crazy conspiracies, I guess. We have some voicemails here, right?
We have 2 different voicemails. Let's go to the first one. These are specific bonus show voicemails.
Yes.
Hi, this is Rushdie Fucker, otherwise known as Rick. This is a comment for the bonus show. You guys are talking about the FAA controlling space exploration or private space exploration, and I was just wondering if the FAA, meaning Federal Aviation Administration, it just covers America. So couldn't a Virgin Atlantic, that they own a ton of planes, couldn't they just fly somewhere in South America and then from there launch into space and then avoid all of the FAA's regulations? Is that feasible or doable? And in this way, completely eliminating the FAA's authority?
This is a good question. Do you know about that, Lewis? The FAA was looking to get in the way of Virgin Galactic starting their flights into lower space. What if you're in another country?
I did look into this, and it seems that the FAA's jurisdiction is strictly within the United States. But if you leave the United States, or you do fly from one country and land in another, you do then have to deal with their equivalent of the FAA is, I would assume.
But is there a consensus among all aviation authorities not to allow this stuff or to make it really difficult?
That I do not know. So I don't know. There has to be some reason that they wanted to do the flight in and out of the United States. I don't know why. Maybe it has to do with the flight path, the trajectory, the size of the country, or any number of things, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the FAA would have no jurisdiction elsewhere. So who knows? Maybe they'll just move it. Maybe they'll move it to Australia or Russia or North Korea. I don't know. Anything's possible, and we'll see. Let's play that second one.
All right, here we go.
What's up, guys? This is Rick Fucker for the bonus show. I was going to tell you, tell Lewis what you should have done. I know this is already in the past now, hindsight, but as soon as your car was towed from the Jack in the Box parking lot, you got to go in and buy something, and then you're a valid paying customer, and then the car was being towed, under false pretenses. Either that or go in the trash can, grab a bag out of there, and look for a receipt, something like that. I know it's a little late now, but yeah. And then also for the other one, you need to take photos of the sign, if there is one, and also it being an ice storm. That's part of the condition that it would be not seen. It's not visible, so that could aid your case if you decided you wanted to fight it.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as the Jack in the Box was closed when you got towed from there, so you couldn't have gone in and bought something, right, after the fact.
Well, it was open when I parked, but when I came out, it was closed.
Right. Not to mention if the receipt showed a purchase time that was much later than the tow time, that might not really fly. Did you think about any of these techniques, Louis?
I did, especially in the last instance of my car being towed. But when you go get your car, you sign these papers, you give them your money, and on that first sheet, there is a list of about like a 15-item list. And it outlines everything you need to do to contest the tow. And it is not worth the effort. It involves fees, first of all. So you have to pay money just to contest it. And all sorts of documentation. And there's a time limit to everything. And it basically makes legal recourse impossible.
It's deliberately, they're placing ridiculous obstacles so that people won't do it. I mean, it's always the way that this has been done.
Right. And the state has to be in on this. I can, when cars are getting towed from metered spots and, state property, I have to imagine that the state gets a cut of this tow. And I assume the same applies to the apartment where my car got towed. I mean, that's the only reason these companies would enter into contracts like this is because they're getting a cut.
Well, but
of the
when
money.
when it's towed from the apartment, the state wouldn't get a cut. But certainly, it's possible that the apartment complex does.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But of course, the state has made sure that, along with the towing company, that legal recourse is almost impossible, and that there's really nothing you can do. It's crazy.
I did just successfully fight a parking ticket here in New York City. Here, I don't know how familiar people are with the different neighborhoods and the parking systems, but in a lot of neighborhoods, like in Brooklyn where I live, you can park on the street for free, but you have to pay attention to the signs. And typically, usually once, sometimes twice a week, in my neighborhood, just once usually, spots have a designated street cleaning time. So for example, it could be Tuesday from 10:30 in the morning until noon, an hour and a half window. During that window, you can't be parked there. Otherwise, you can. So I think it was like on a Saturday, I came back from somewhere and parked in a Tuesday spot. So, or no, I'm sorry, it was a Wednesday spot. Now, if I have a Wednesday spot, usually on Tuesday evening, I'll move the car because otherwise I have to get up early before work to move the car on the Wednesday. So I went over to get the car and I had a ticket, and it was a ticket for $60 saying I was parked in a construction zone. And case in point, they had put up a temporary sign saying no parking here for the next 2 weeks because of construction. And I had to fight it and say the sign for construction went up after I parked. So that's not really fair. They initially repealed or denied my appeal, saying I didn't provide enough evidence. And I said, okay, I parked initially on this date, which was before when the construction sign was placed. And about 3 weeks later, I got a letter back saying, yes, you were actually right. You don't have to pay for this ticket. But I didn't have to pay for the appeals, but it was two different. It was an initial appeal and then a subsequent appeal, printing stuff, scanning the original ticket. It's a huge pain. I still did it because I didn't want to pay. I'd rather pay $1 in postage sending something twice than paying the $60.
Right. Well, the time and on the money you would actually, I don't know, the money you'd have to spend on the actual fees for my situation, and then the amount of time it would take, it just doesn't make it worth it. I got an email saying that I should just contact a city council member for that district and tell them what's going on. But I'm sure they know. How could they not? This is happening all over Austin, all over Travis County. I don't know. It seems that maybe I'll do that, but I don't know. It seems you need to go a little higher up. You might need to get a petition going. You might need to do any number of things. It's such a pain in the ass. But I think, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something. Might not be legal, but I'm going to do something. And we'll leave it at that, I guess. Anything you want to add to today?
No, I think that really sums it up. Remember that until midnight Eastern tomorrow night, contributions up to the $7,000 mark on our campaign will be matched 1-for-1 by a self-described rich dude who wants to help the show. So if we're at $6,500 and you put in $500, there's going to be another $500 added to double your money. So this is big. I hope people will do it. DavidPakman.com, Indiegogo banner at the top. It's blue. Check it out.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.